Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm glad to be here. First, I want to thank Senator Peters. Leo, Nira, come on up. One of our great senators. He's really done a great job here. Nira Tandon of CAP, which also does a phenomenal job, and my dear friend Leo Gerard from the Steelworkers. He's the CEO, what is it called?
International President.
International President of the United Steelworkers of America. Now, time and time again on the campaign trail, the president-elect promised workers across the country he'd stand up for jobs, protect jobs, prevent jobs from being shipped overseas. That was music to the ears of the middle class and those struggling to get there. And it was music to the ears of Democrats. We've been fighting this fight for a long time. We've been pushing to change our trade laws and our tax laws for years, Democrats in the Senate have. We've been trying to do everything we can to stop companies from shipping jobs overseas. Time and time and time again, we've been stymied by Republicans here in Congress. Just this week, Republicans in Congress stripped a provision out of the water bill that would require that steel that will be used to rebuild our infrastructure be made in America. Think about that. The simple question before our Republican colleagues was, should American steel be used to rebuild America's infrastructure? They stood up and said no. Those are not the kind of policies that are going to build and keep jobs here in America. And those are not the kind of policies that President-elect talked about in his campaign. We're asking him to weigh in on this issue, to tell the Republicans in the House and Senate, put back the Buy America provision. Plain and simple. Now, today, we are here as the Center for American Progress launches their Trump Outsource Watch project, that will track jobs that leave country in the year ahead. And Nira is going to explain the details. We are also here to challenge the president-elect to stick to his words on the campaign trail and work with Democrats to change our laws, to stop companies from shipping jobs overseas, and when there's federal dollars being spent, to buy it here in America and employ American workers, not workers overseas. If companies are going to abandon the United States, they should pay an exit tax. They shouldn't get a break on their taxes for their moving expenses. We challenge the president again, president-elect. We challenge the president-elect again to work with us to pass these policies and protect American jobs. The president-elect campaigned against both parties' establishments. He will fight us on issues where we disagree. We understand that. But he should be prepared to fight the Republican establishment where they disagree with him. When it comes to trade and protecting American jobs, congressional Republicans and the president-elect seem to be on the opposite sides. It's time for him to stare them down. With that, I'm turning it over to Senator Peters.
Well, thank you, Senator Schumer, and I tell you, I can't agree more that there isn't anything more important in this country than to focus on jobs, to make sure that every American, no matter who they are, no matter where they live, have the opportunity to get a fair wage, a living wage. And when you have outsourcing going on all across this country and jobs being lost in every state, that is not happening. You know, I come from the state of Michigan, a manufacturing state, a state that has been hit very, very hard as a result of outsourcing. And as I look at Donald Trump and his policies, I am very suspect as to what the future holds. Here we have a CEO who bought most of his products overseas. He basically is an outsourcer himself. When it comes to steel, we have the steel workers here. He buys Chinese steel as opposed to American steel. And I know firsthand from representing the great state of Michigan that American workers are the best workers in the world. They build with the highest quality, with the most efficiency, and if you back American workers, you will win every time. And I saw the incredible impact of a comprehensive policy when it came to the rescue of the auto industry. When the auto industry was on its knees as a result of the greed that we saw on Wall Street and the economy collapsing around it. There are a lot of folks that said, let that industry go down. Donald Trump was one of those people. Vice President Pence was one of those people who said, let the auto industry disappear. But we know you need real leadership to stand up and not just do a photo op. We had the president-elect do a photo op recently with one company. We need a lot more than a photo op. We need comprehensive manufacturing policy and the willingness to stand up when it's really tough for an entire industry. And that's certainly what President Obama did. He stood with American auto workers. He stood with American steel workers, and they proved that they are the best workers when that industry came back, and we now have jobs that would have been lost without that. And that's why I think this project is so important. We can't just look at one headline, one photo op that a president flies in and flies out, and there's some tax credits from one state. This is about a comprehensive policy to make sure that every American in every company, not just those companies that are picked as winners when the other ones are losers, but every American worker has the opportunity to have that good job in the United States of America. And the only way we're going to know that is if we are tracking these numbers. If we look at where those jobs are, where companies are hiring people, and we need to be systematic about it. And that's why I'm so pleased with this effort, which is going to take a look at everybody in the country, look at all workers. And then we'll be able to see whether or not the policies of Donald Trump are successful or not. And I will argue, as Senator Schumer has, that they will not be if we're not looking at retraining workers, if we're not looking at making sure manufacturers have the capital that they need to invest in those good-paying jobs. There are a whole host of things that we need to be doing. This is time to move beyond photo ops. This is the time to have concrete policy, and concrete policy that impacts every single American. And this is a step in the right direction, and that's why I'm proud to join NERA. NERA, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here with so many champions for America's workers. Senator Schumer, Senator Peters, a great friend, Leo Gerard, and a great advocate for steelworkers and really workers across the country. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we're actually going to do. Donald Trump promised that he would keep American jobs from being shipped overseas, and we really just want to keep him to that promise. It's hard to trust that talk on outsourcing when so many businesses he's had have actually shipped jobs overseas. In fact, in 2005, Trump said that he supported global outsourcing, calling it, I quote, a necessary step for some companies. We also have the evidence of his administration. Trump is naming folks like, for Commerce Secretary, like billionaire Wilbur Ross, who has been dubbed the king of bankruptcy for his history of buying troubled companies, laying off workers, closing down steel plants and factories, and opening them up in places like Mexico and China. And obviously, we have the example of Carrier, which I know Leo will talk about in more detail. So that's why our effort is very simple. It's just focused on keeping Donald Trump accountable for the things, the promises he's already made. So Cap Action is launching the Trump Outsource Watch, which will tell American workers how many jobs are getting shipped overseas on President Trump's watch. This tracker will use media reports, regulatory filings, resources from across the country. We'd like to hear from workers, unions, companies about the numbers of jobs that are being lost from offshoring under Trump. People will be able to easily access this information online, and we hope they'll add their own stories. We hope that workers will be able to use this as a resource to track offshoring under Trump and hold him accountable if and when he breaks his promises. Last week, President-elect Trump said that he would personally call every company that is shipping jobs overseas and tell them to stop. And we hope he will. And perhaps he can use the Trump Outsource Watch as a useful guide for those companies. And so that's why we want to provide this information. Now, we will be doing this going forward. We will not be tracking information that's already happened, like when a company moves its production of its suits to China, as Trump did, or ties to Mexico, as Trump did. That information will not be here, but we will have information for all companies going forward. And with that, I am proud to turn it over to our friend and ally, Leo Gerard, who's the International President of the United Steelworkers, and who spends every day fighting for a good paying job, and very recently, fighting to protect his leadership and workers who sometimes come under some criticism for their strong advocacy on behalf of working families. Leo?
Thank you. I really wanted to be here because our union has been fighting for close to 35 years about trade and fair trade. And it was after this election that we took the opportunity to write to the president-elect, remind him that we've been fighting this fight for more than 35 years, to tell him that we were prepared to work with him to replace NAFTA, to repeal and replace PNTR with China, to repeal and replace CAFTA, the trade deal, repeal and replace the trade deal with South Korea. And when you take all of those trade deals and you go back 10 years, we've got an accumulated trade deficit over those last 10 years of several $trillion. And my question to everyone is, if a trade deficit is so good, why does no other nation want one? So we've indicated to President-elect Trump that we're prepared to work with him on all of those repeal and replace trade deals that he said. We're prepared to work with him to make sure that what he said about any company that fires workers in America to go manufacture something in another country, be it China or Mexico or anyone else, then ship them back here for sale, that he wants to whack a 35% tax on that, and we're with him on that, and we would support him for that. At Carrier makes furnaces at that Carrier plant in Indiana. Mexicans don't need many furnaces. They may need in some places, but those furnaces are designed to come back to America. So not only did President-elect Trump make an important statement to help saving 730 jobs in our bargaining unit at that Carrier plant, he also made an important statement that if you're going to ship jobs out of here and try to bring the product back, that's not acceptable, and he's going to take and wants to impose a substantial tax on that. Let me just say this as well. These aren't jobs that are being lost because American workers aren't productive. Many of these jobs are lost, and I would encourage you to do some work on this issue. Many of those jobs are lost because the market responds to job loss and job exportation by rising stock values. And one of the problems of the last several years is that too many corporate executives are rewarding themselves by buying back their own stock rather than investing in domestic manufacturing. So that the fact that they're buying back their own stock is really an impediment to good jobs, because it saps energy and money from investing in plant and equipment. But it also, because of the exportation of jobs, pushes up their stock value to buy it back. There's a connection there, and people can't hide from that. So we're pleased that we're going to be part of a track monitoring system. By the way, we've been doing that with steel. We've been trying ourselves to keep track of steel imports. I want to give you an example. I'm being a little long-winded, but we filed a case against Chinese imported truck and bus tires under Section 421. President Obama supported us on that, and we got a remedy. What the Chinese did to get around the remedy, they put the tire on a wheel and shipped it in as a new product for circumvention. Those are the kinds of things that we need to watch. Those are the kind of things that a tracking system can do. Not only do we have to enforce the law, but we have to watch against circumvention, and we have to watch against manipulation of the system. So I think that what CAP is doing is going to be very important, and I have every reason to believe that President Trump is going to be a man of his word and is going to do the things he said he did, and we look forward to working with him on it.
Questions?
I'm done.
Great. We have questions? There's a question over here.
Senator Peters,
Who are you and where are you from?
Niels Lesniewski with roll call. Senator Peters, and probably also for you, Mr. Gerard. This Buy America push this something that can take down this water bill?
Well, obviously, I'm in favor of the bill with Flint and the issues that I have, but there is no question that this is something that the caucus is united in the Buy American. That if you're using federal dollars, those federal dollars should go to American workers, and that is something that will be a focus of my caucus going forward on this bill and other bills as well.
Will you hold it up? Or will Democrats hold it up?
Well, we'll have to wait to see what the vote is. I will tell you, I'm voting for the bill as someone who represents the city of Flint, who desperately need infrastructure. We've been fighting that battle for a considerable amount of time, and I will be supporting legislation to help the Flint. But certainly, it is under intense debate in the caucus, and will be a central issue for us going forward.
Can I just say something about that? I think the issue there is that, as Senator Schumer and Senator Peters are laying out, it would be wonderful to have the president-elect who has talked about Buy America in the past. It would be excellent to have his leadership with Republicans on this topic, and so really shouldn't be up to Democrats to hold this bill up. It should be that Republicans in Congress should listen to the words of President-elect Trump on issues like Buy America and change the provision.
Ryan Rainey from Morning Consult. The president-elect has indicated that he wants to do something to address what he sees as currency manipulation by China. What would you like to see him do? Would it be some sort of executive action, or would you like to see Congress address something dealing with that early in the next Congress?
We've been talking about currency manipulation with at least the last two administrations, the Bush administrations and the Obama administrations. And if you're asking me how soon we'd like to see it, tomorrow. There's absolutely no doubt, zero doubt, that China, but not only China, but China in particular, has been manipulating their currency to try and attempt to get an economic advantage. And we would like that to be dealt with as quickly as possible. I would actually like to also see that it could pass in the Congress. But I think the president should declare them a currency manipulator and start from that position and move forward as quickly as possible.
And are you confident that he will do that early in his administration?
I'm not confident about even the weather, so hopefully that he will. And look at you from the point of view of representing workers. In many ways, President-elect Trump ran on an agenda that is basically the steelworker agenda on manufacturing and jobs. And so I'm assuming that he's going to do the things he said he did. And we've had our friends in the Democratic Party for a long time on our side about the currency manipulation. We've had things like CAP on our side. We've had the research on our side. It's beyond a doubt that China manipulates its currency, but they're not the only one. They're just the worst.
Dave Shepherdson from Reuters. Can I ask first about your reaction to the expected Labor Secretary nominee, Andy Putzer? And Mr. Gerard, have you talked directly to anybody on the Trump team since his tweets criticizing Chuck Jones?
No. I don't know enough, but what I do know, and is a couple of brief things that I understand that he's spoken out against minimum wage. If that's true, I think it's terrible. And he clearly hasn't been supporting of the $15 wage. And a $15 an hour wage is not a very high living standard. And so I don't know much about him. With regards to your comment about Chuck Jones, Chuck was simply clarifying what really affected his members. There were 1,400 jobs in that plant, hourly jobs. When it was announced that there would be 1,100 jobs saved, 1,100 families felt really better, felt some reasonable security. Chuck, as a good local president, went and checked to make sure the facts were right, and he found out that it was 730 jobs. And he's made that clear. So as far as I'm concerned, Chuck Jones is a very effective and well-qualified local union president who is standing up for his members, and I'm very proud of him.
Well, I just reiterate what Leo mentioned, is that certainly we have concerns. We want to raise a number of questions through the nomination process, but we want the process to move forward. I think we're keeping an open mind on these nominees, but we are seeing troubling nominees across the board, from Department of Labor to the EPA to the list goes on, the Department of Education, others that we have serious reservations about. But we will have an opportunity in an open forum in front of the American people to ask the questions that the American people are expecting us to ask, and depending on those answers, we will vote accordingly.
Can I just say one quick, oh, go ahead.
Mr. Gerard indicated earlier that he would theoretically support the president-elect's call for a 35% tariff on companies that leave the country. Would you support that? What would that look like as legislation if you do? And can you explain how that would work?
Well, I think we have to wait to see what the proposal is. But basically, the concept that you have companies like Carrier, but that was going to basically move to Mexico and then ship those products back, take advantage of labor rates considerably less, which was the main reason for that. That's simply unacceptable. We have to have a new framework as to what that level of tax is, as to what those policies are. Those are things that we're going to be discussing going forward. But I think it's very clear, and the message was very clear in this election as well, that enough is enough. You can't keep sending good-paying jobs to other countries and then shipping those products back. You can't have a sustainable economy if people don't have strong wages that can actually buy these products. So we have to change the way we do business. And if that means a tariff, if it means other sorts of activities that we need or proposals that we have to engage in, I'm going to be fully supportive of that, because our communities have been hollowed out. They've been devastated as a result of outsourcing. Hopefully, Donald Trump will come through with those. He certainly has a great deal of experience in outsourcing. He is very skilled at it, as he has outsourced all of his products and buying Chinese steel and clothing products. So he knows the games that CEOs play, because he's played that game very well. And now it's time for him to step up and truly stand up for American workers.
Let me make a suggestion that we tried to promote on the campaign trail. And what that was is that if you look at the track record, the United Steelworkers Union has filed or been a party to more trade cases than almost any other organization in the country. And we win the overwhelming majority of the time. Part of what I think should be looked at is not just the outsourcing of jobs that is clearly really, really important, but also the enforcement of the trade laws as they exist and the improvement in the trade laws. In fact, if you look at trade cases, almost every major country in Asia is a dumper. In particular in the steel industry, the tire industry, the aluminum industry. And it shouldn't rest on the private sector to have to enforce the trade laws. And there was an idea that was promoted during the campaign that has to be visited, and I think that's the establishment of a trade prosecutor that would report directly to the president and would enforce the existing trade laws. As weak and as shallow as they may be, we should still have them enforced.
Well, one last question?
Mr. Gerard, co-commissioner with Politico. I was wondering, just given the president-elect's reaction to Chuck Jones and the way what he brought up, I was wondering if you feel hopeful that you'll be able to work with the president-elect on other types of deals and legislation to prevent this, or you're concerned that he will just
Look at to be brutally honest, I was a bit sad that the person who's going to inherit the most powerful job on the planet went after a local union president who was just trying to do his job of informing his members. We didn't waste a lot of time. Within a few days after the election results, we wrote to the president-elect and laid out the kinds of things I've talked about: infrastructure, trade enforcement, amending, repealing, and reviewing the existing trade laws. We wrote about that. And we're serious. We're willing to work with them. Jobs and raising wages is important. That's the only way we're going to deal with income inequality, is creating good family-supporting jobs and maintaining them and improving them. And so I'm not going to rule it out. I'm going to tell him that I'm very hopeful, and he and Chuck have had their little spat, and maybe we can move beyond that.
Thank you.